Fox News alert. Breaking moments ago. The DA in Napa County, California charged Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, with DUI. This after weeks of pressure from you, primetime viewers. According to the press release, Pelosi will face a misdemeanor charge, not a felony. Surprise, surprise. The release added that he had his blood taken and he had his blood alcohol at over 0.80, 0.82. So, if convicted, he faces up to 5 years probation and a minimum of 5 days in jail. Other than that, it doesn't offer many new details about the crash or what exactly happened that night. For that, we have the New York Times, believe it or not. Now, like most people, you may have missed the fashion section of the New York Times today. We don't blame you. But if you skim past the editorials on Elvis breaking fashion boundaries and avatars wearing Prada, you'd find a very important story buried right near the bottom. A story that contains many shocking new details about Nancy Pelosi's husband's DUI arrest. Now, you may be wondering, what's so fashionable about drunk driving? How did that end up in the fashion section? I guess if you're going to smash up your Porsche, you got to do it in style, like Paulie P. We can assure the Times it wasn't the fashion police who arrested Paul Pelosi, even though for an 82-year-old he looks pretty good, especially after totaling his sports car. Got the sports code. It seems like this article was spoon-fed to the Times by Pelosi's cleanup team to make Paulie look like a victim. That's right. And I use the term Pelosi's team very loosely because we're not really sure Nancy is on board with what happened that night. More on that later. The Times refers to Paul Pelosi as a, quote, swaggering presence in Napa, well-dressed, with a full head of salt and pepper hair. With high society connections to the Newsom family and Getty tycoons. They quoted friends in Napa who said Papa Paulie's nothing more than just a social drinker, of course. And it would be harsh, quote unquote, to put him in jail because in Napa, quote, drunk driving was always met with understanding rather than criminal charges. But that's not all. We're just getting started. Buried between the paragraphs about Paulie's sleek salt and pepper hair and Nancy's favorite nail salon, there are some shocking details about what really happened that night, things we haven't heard before, and things that only make this night seem more suspicious. For example, according to the Times, there was a witness at the scene of the collision, a witness. Funny because we asked for witness statements and they told us to take a hike. So who is this witness? Just standing on the side of the road in the middle of the night? In the middle of nowhere? There's no bus stops in wine country. So if you ask Primetime, this sounds a little fishy. So we have to ask, was the witness in the car with Paul? We know Nancy was out of town that night, and reports suggest Paulie P's always had a little bit of a wandering eye. Was it hanky-panky that caused the collision? We don't know. When we spoke to the cops, they refused to say if there was a passenger in the car. They can't confirm or deny it. Very interesting. Another interesting tidbit, according to the Times, both cars were totaled. Totaled. For weeks, we've been led to believe this was just like your everyday little fender bender. We'll say it again. Both cars were totaled. The mystery witness also told the Times Pelosi stayed in his car after the accident. He wouldn't get out. Instead of getting out, like, most people do when they get into a car accident, Pelosi froze. He was motionless. It took him several minutes to move. Why did it take him so long to get out of the car? What was he doing in the car that whole time? New York Times also claims a local sheriff was actually the first person to arrive on the scene, not California Highway Patrol. This is the first time we're hearing about a sheriff. So Primetime called him. They told us he was just cruising by when he saw the crash, stopped to check in on everybody, and then left the scene since it wasn't his jurisdiction. Does that sound like something a sheriff would do? When two cars get totaled in the middle of the night on a secluded highway, you just drive by, everybody okay? Oh, okay. This isn't my jurisdiction. I'm out of here. What? We asked the sheriff if there was a passenger in the car with Papa P, and believe it or not, he told us he knew the answer to that question, but he couldn't tell us because he was being muzzled by Napa County District Attorney Allison Haley. Hey, Allie. She's the one withholding information from the public. She's Newsom's girl, who, by the way, the Times points out, has some family ties to the Pelosi's. You guys ready for a fun fact from the Pelosi family tree? Paul's brother was married to the aunt of Gavin Newsom. Just wanted to put that out there. Newsom puts in Allie. The whole thing's family. And in that New York Times piece, they also mentioned firefighters showed up soon after. Why is this the first time we're hearing about firefighters showing up? Maybe because no one released a police report yet. Nothing is by the book here. Was a report filed by the fire department? Is there footage of the firefighters at the scene? Do they have a dash cam in the engine? Did they have to pull a motionless Pelosi out of his wrecked Porsche? Primetime wants the truth, so we also contacted Napa's fire department with these very questions and requested all their documents and available footage. No surprise we haven't heard back yet. It's almost like Hunter Biden smashed up his Porsche. Because have you ever seen so many people come together and cover up something that happened? Fancy Nancy wants this bottled up. The Times actually mentioning Mrs. Speaker of the House swung into full crisis mode as soon as she found out about the accident. She assembled a pricey defense team, hiring a crisis manager, a defense lawyer, and a PR exec. But Nancy can afford it. Paul's been timing the market for decades thanks to their pillow talk. Their crisis manager is Larry Kamer. He's the guy that told us, quote, "So far as I know, there's no mugshot." That was obviously a lie after pressure from all of you guys. The DA was forced to release the mugshot just days later. So either Nancy's paying him a lot to lie, or he's just really an expensive idiot. We report, you decide. She's also paying them to bury Papa P's troubled driving record. This isn't the first Pelosi accident. When he was 16, a young Paulie P flipped over his sports car on a tight highway curve, tragically killing his brother, who was in the car with him at the time. And years later, he and Nancy were on their way to a fundraiser with their children when their car flipped on its side. Luckily, nobody was injured. And of course, Nancy was never one to turn down money, so she stuck her thumb out and hitchhiked to the fundraiser. We never found out who was driving the car that day. We expect there probably was a little bit of a cover-up back then, too. Pelosi supposedly wants her PR goons to keep us from knowing Papa P's record. The New York Times, in their puff piece, was already taking the bait, blaming Paulie's most recent accident, you ready? On his recent cataract surgery. So Paul Pelosi couldn't see, and he was drunk. I'm not sure how that makes the story much better, but I think they think that helps their defense. Sounds like Paul Pelosi is the most dangerous man on wheels. And for the sake of California public safety, might want to start Ubering back from dinner parties when his wife is on the opposite side of the continent. But when you have liberal privilege, you can dance around insider trading, smash up sports cars, and get the New York Times to write a puff piece about how salt and peppery your gorgeous hair is. This explains why we haven't seen the dash cam and the body cam footage from that night. California Highway Patrol has it. They told us they have it. And they say the DA won't let them release it. And the DA is telling us a different story, but we're not going to get jerked around. That's why our attorney has served both sides with papers demanding the release of all the footage, along with an explanation. The burden legally is on them, not us. All we're asking for is transparency, plain and simple. But if they don't respond to us by Monday, we'll be taking them to court. Brian Claypool is a DUI and civil rights attorney. So, Brian, obviously this is all just breaking. What do you think about the fact that they're charging Paulie with a misdemeanor? But I think the injuries to the other driver, I think they're more than just a Band-Aid. That's the impression I'm getting, right?
Yeah, hey, great to be back with you, Jesse. I mean, the plot just continues to thicken. People across this country just want to have fair justice for all, right? Not what you just said, which is liberal blue privilege in Napa County. And I just read this press release that your office sent me, and it's really stunning. It's staggering. This press release was written really in response to you, your show, your viewers, and the Public Records Act request that you filed, which was a great job. I mean, this DA cites in this press release, you know what she said, Jesse? Leave the victim alone. She's calling the victim now the guy that has initially had no injuries, right?
Right.
He leave this poor guy alone. He's the victim now. And guess what she does, Jesse? She cites a law in California called Marsy's Law. Well, I got news for her, because I do sex abuse cases too. Marsy's Law stems from sexual abuse victims who demand a right to be heard in court and privacy when there's a charge of assault, battery, or sexual abuse, not a car accident. So I'm offended by the fact that she would raise that issue too. And let me throw in another one.
Sure.
She's trying to tell your viewers across the country, let's not litigate this case on TV. And we don't have to give Jesse, the dash cam video, because we don't try cases in the public forum. Well, I got news for her. I've read the Public Records Act too many times. I'm embarrassed to admit that. But I will tell you that it applies to an impending criminal investigation. If that investigation is in danger, well, guess what? Somebody send a news flash to her. Her criminal investigation has been completed now, right? He's been charged. So she needs to release that dash cam footage. It doesn't apply.
All right, so this DA, Allie, hey, Allie, she's corrupt and stupid because she's citing improper statutes that don't apply to this situation. And she doesn't even know when her investigation's finished, so that basically opens up the door for the dash cam release. I don't understand now the witness, because we've been banging down doors to find out if there was someone in the car, if there was a witness. All of a sudden, a month later, a magical witness is in play, and we're getting a vibe that the witness may or may not have been in the car with Paul Pelosi. What the heck is going on here with this case?
It's a flat-out joke, dude. This is an embarrassment to the justice system, not just in California, across the country. This is flat-out privilege. I've been involved in a lot of cases. Nobody gets this kind of pampering for a DUI that involved an injury that could have been elevated to a higher felony. But guess what? She didn't tell us what the injury was to this guy, so we can't make up our mind whether it should have been charged as a felony, right? She intentionally leaves that information out for all of you, and then she, in this press release, she's protecting the witness. That is not a fair and unbiased prosecutor. She has no right to go out and try to protect the person that was involved in this accident. The country, people across this country have a right to know what went down that night. And I got news for you. When you go to trial, Jesse, there's a million ways you can make sure to get a fair trial. You ask all the jurors, did you see Jesse's show? If you didn't see his show, then you could be on the jury, right? There's a lot of ways to make sure Paul gets a fair jury trial.
Right. And remember, according to Allie, the DA, Paul's the victim. He's almost murdering people drunk on the highway at 10 p.m., but he's the victim. Let's get that right. All right, we're going to keep pushing this, and we're going to see him in court if they don't respond. Thank you so much, Brian, for all your expertise. Couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, you bet, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
Antifa now cashing in on their liberal privilege. Plus, primetime hits the streets with the Duck Dynasty team.
What is the lame duck in government? I don't really like geese. They be attacking people for no reason.
The left has been slandering the police for years. They called cops Nazis during the BLM riots. But then came January 6th, and something strange happened.
We see protesters attacking police officers with canisters and sprays.
You'll see here to push past police, removing the barriers that were in the crowd's way, including, at times, literal metal barricades. And attacking police.
We saw them attack police officers.
Hundreds of police officers defending the U.S. Capitol were viciously attacked by the mob.
All of a sudden, they cared about people attacking police. And they want to throw the book at everybody who happened to sneeze on an officer that day. Primetime just wants liberals to respect cops every day of the year, not just on January 6th. Because Biden's DOJ has quietly dropped federal assault charges against Antifa criminals who attacked police officers in Portland. And not a single Democrat politician seems to care. You remember the Portland riots? Remember? It was 100 days of violence. Fires were set, businesses were destroyed, police officers were hurt. They laid siege to a federal courthouse, injuring scores of officers and causing a lot of damage. But Joe Biden's Department of Justice, they just keep dropping the charges for all of the Antifa rioters. Ready? At least 79 of them have had their charges dropped. Even people who assaulted police officers. CPAC recently uncovered these details. Just a few months ago, the Biden administration dropped charges against Christian Burke. He threw a large rock at a federal officer's head in August 2020 in Portland. Skylar Roy Ryder, real beauty, had his charges dropped after he violently stabbed a cop with an umbrella. In January, his charges were dropped in the interest of justice, whatever that means. But it wasn't just then. As soon as Biden got into office, his Department of Justice just started dropping charges like it was their job. Nathan Underdog Snow, a ridiculous name, if I've ever heard one, smashed a federal officer in the face with a shield. Another handsome lad. His charges were also dropped. Sebastian Dubar, woo, look at those tats, assaulted a federal officer. The Biden Justice Department filed a motion to dismiss, which the judge granted. Evan Louis Kreitbaum, nice hair, who calls himself a Korean anarchist, had his felony assault charge dropped after violently attacking an officer. And you know why they're getting away with it? Because Antifa is just an idea, remember? Not to mention an idea drenched in liberal privilege. Case in point, the Colbert 7. I highly doubt federal prosecutors are going to hold them accountable. We know the extremist pro-abortion group Jane's Revenge, they won't be prosecuted by the Biden administration, even though they attacked dozens of pro-life centers and have threatened even greater violence if Roe falls. Biden's Justice Department probably doesn't even have a single undercover agent in this radical and violent pro-choice outfit.
It's a joke.
They're probably
call
all
it
being
Justice
used against
Department.
Trump supporters. Sorry, we don't have any undercovers to spare.
No justice.
This has been happening for years. Remember in 2008, when then Attorney General Eric Holder dropped the charges against those baton-wielding new Black Panther Party dudes when they tried to intimidate voters at the polling station in Philly? Democrats protect their own. But don't you dare raise your voice at a board meeting if your daughter was raped in a bathroom by a cross-dressing psychopath. Parents who speak out against anything in school, like critical race theory or mask mandates, they're called domestic terrorists. And Merrick Garland opens an FBI file on them. It is time for Merrick Garland to go. When Republicans take the House, he needs to be censured. And then he needs to be put in a headlock, gently, and given a very, very big noogie. Matt Schlapp is the chairman of CPAC, who joins us now. We don't want anybody to touch Merrick Garland's head. He wouldn't like that. But, I mean, enough is enough with this clown who just doesn't deliver justice in a fair and decent way. Don't you think it's time for him to go?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, Jesse. And the main reason is this, is there's something about the Department of Justice that's supposed to be
All
free of
Democrats
politics.
to go.
And under Obama, now under Biden, the Department of Justice is operating like it's the Democratic National Committee. They just sent out a slew of subpoenas in the states that have the most important Senate races. States like Nevada and Arizona and Pennsylvania and Georgia. There was a time when the DOJ would back away when politics is involved. For these guys, when politics is involved, they step in. And the dropping of all these charges against these violent rioters in Portland is a disgraceful example that if your cause, if your left-wing cause is supported by this Department of Justice. It doesn't matter what you do to a cop, throw a rock at a cop, throw a canister at a cop, put his shield to his neck, hit him with your elbows wildly and violently. It doesn't matter if your left-wing cause is one that they accept.
Do you think that the Department of Justice under Joe Biden kind of uses Antifa as a little bit of a street squad?
I think that the Democratic Party has embraced violence. We see Jamie Raskin on this J6 committee, Jesse, that said during the Rodney King riots that he hoped that nobody was prosecuted by the then Bush 41 Justice Department. We have Betty Thompson, who's the chairman of this sham committee, basically saying those riots were justified. So I do think that this socialist party, which is it's a tragedy that the Democratic Party has embraced this radicalism, violence is a part of it. And how do you know that? They never call it out. Nancy Pelosi said on all the Black Lives Matter protests, I guess people are going to do things.
All right,
That's as strong as she could get.
So if you wander into a federal building in Washington, they're going to throw the book at you. But if you light one on fire in Portland, then they're going to drop the charges. I guess that's the new standard of justice. And that's despicable.
This J6 investigation, from what I have been reading today, many people at DOJ are claiming it's the largest investigation in its history, the most subpoenas in our history over the fact that we had cities and states that wouldn't follow voter ID, and the fact that people were outraged over that. And the states I was in, I saw people who were outraged over that. If you're a grandma and you're worried about the fact that voter ID isn't upheld, you're probably still sitting in jail. If you go after a cop and you're with BLM or Antifa, this Department of Justice wants to say, hey, it's okay. You had a grievance. You must have had a bad day.
All right, Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jesse.
The left unloads on the Supreme Court after they rule on gun rights. The situation at the White House is deteriorating rapidly. Joe Biden's home health aides are now giving him note cards with very specific instructions on how to complete the most basic tasks required for any adult human being. Seriously, look at one of these cards caught on camera earlier today. Ready? You enter the Roosevelt room and say hello. You take your seat, not somebody else's seat. You give brief comments. You ask Liz Shuler a question. So apparently questions are arranged in advance. You thank participants. You depart. Notice the word you is always capitalized. They have to tell their boss, the President of the United States, to sit in the chair with his name on it. Well, we've got some suggestions for tomorrow's card. You drill, you stop spending money, and you stay on your bike. Hopefully someone gives us the card. A major win for the Second Amendment today. The Supreme Court ruling to overturn New York's restrictive regulations for concealed carry permits. But the left is already furious.
Given everything New York City is going through, it seems, I don't even have the words. It's such a middle finger to New York.
I am disappointed in the Supreme Court gun decision. I think it's a bad decision. I think it's not reasoned accurately, but I'm disappointed.
Many of us are deeply concerned and troubled by the Supreme Court's ruling today. It, I believe, defies common sense and the Constitution of the United States.
And then there's Keith Olbermann, rageaholic and former MSNBC anchor, who went a little further. He called for the full Supreme Court abolishment. Just dissolve it. And then he called Amy Coney Barrett just a paralegal. After a year and a half of listening to the left lecture us on the importance of the balance of powers, the Constitution, our democratic institutions, and the rule of law, they disagree with the Supreme Court decision, and hey, let's burn it all down. Glenn Greenwald is a Substack columnist and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. Glenn, what are the chances that you think Kamala Harris actually read today's opinion?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, so much of the denunciations about what the Supreme Court is doing have no bearing at all on what they actually concluded about the Constitution. And what's driving me craziest is that whenever the court invalidates a law on the grounds that it violates the Constitution, as the court did today, the main argument that's being invoked is, oh, well, this law is very popular, or the Supreme Court ruling is unpopular, which is a complete perversion of how our entire system of constitutional republic is supposed to function. If all you do is tell people that whenever a majority wants something, they can have it, you don't need a constitution, you don't need a Bill of Rights, you don't need a Supreme Court, you just have an election or a referendum. The whole point of having a Supreme Court and a Bill of Rights is to say, sometimes when majorities want something, it infringes on the fundamental rights of the minority, and therefore we need a Supreme Court to invalidate it. It's such a perverse form of reason to try and appeal to popular opinion to defend a Supreme Court opinion.
It's a great point. I mean, you don't want the justices to know what's popular at all. You want them wearing non-trendy clothes. You want them going to average restaurants. And you want them watching TV shows that aren't really that popular at all and you can barely find on Netflix. That's the kind of mindset you want as a justice, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing they were saying things today like the Supreme Court should be reading the room and they should be following public events because people are angry about gun violence. That's exactly what you don't want judges doing, so reading the room. That's why they have life tenure, because they don't have to worry about doing things unpopular. Their whole job is to do things unpopular when the majority does something that violates the Constitution.
You know, they're like, why can't you guys just be like politicians, like us, you know, put your finger in the air and just kind of go with the mob? I mean, why can't you guys just go with the mob? Unbelievable. But I think we expect to hear more of this as this big Roe case is going to be decided. So
it's supposed to work.
Just get ready. We're going to have our minds blown by some not very deep legal opinions. Thank you so much, Glenn Greenwald.
All right, Jesse, thank you.
Jussie Smollett has gone full Costanza. We'll tell you what happened next. Since CNN has retired the term big lie, I think we should put it to some good use elsewhere, like with Jussie Smollett. He's been pushing a really big lie for years. And even though we all know that he hired two African brothers to stage the hate crime hoax, he is still sticking to his story.
If I had done this, I'd be a piece of yeah. And I don't think that is that's not really questionable. If I had done something like this, it would mean that I stuck my fist in the pain of Black Americans. It would mean that I stuck my fist in the fears of the LGBTQ community. I'm not that.
Oh,
never have been. Don't need to be.
As Biden would say, come on, man. You got off easy. 6 days in jail out of a possible 150. Come clean already. Unless you're prepared to go full Costanza.
Just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Joining me now is Dr. Catherine Coleman, clinical psychologist. All right, doctor, what do you think's going on upstairs in his little head?
Well, it's a great question, Jesse. You know, it just seems like he's either in such denial about what happened or he absolutely lacks self-awareness. You know, you played some of the audio and, you know, he refers and he says to himself, you know, if I had done this, you know, I would really be a piece of, you know what, well, guess what? By saying all of this, you're just digging the hole deeper. You are. That's exactly what's happening. I don't know that he realizes how badly this continues to look for him in the court of public opinion.
Do you think he goes through what happened that night in his head and maybe tries to convince himself before going to sleep that maybe things didn't happen that way? Or does he know that it's all bogus and he just keeps doing this because it's the only way he knows?
Well, you know, who really knows? But Look, he's a liar. He gets caught in lies consistently, and he's probably gotten away with it for a long time, and it's been reinforced. And so he's definitely lying to the public. He's probably lying to himself as well. But I do think he's probably at this point where he absolutely believes his own lie, and he's going to stick to his story. I admire the perseverance.
You admire it.
He sees other
So if you
Democrats
sat
get
him
away
down on the
with
couch,
lying.
doctor, and he was paying you your exorbitant fee hourly, how would you crack him? What would you tell him?
Oh, I would validate him. I would be like, yeah, it's really rough to be you, Jesse. It's really rough to be an actor and make money and to spend a measly 6.5 days in jail when you could have spent so much time. I would have stroked his ego.
And you stroke it, and then you bring it all out. All right.
Exactly.
I'd like to sit in on that session. Thank you so much, doctor.
Have a good one.
There's certain rules you have to follow if you want to be president. Number one, if you're on the campaign trail, don't eat a corn dog. It's not a good look. And if you're able to avoid food on sticks and make it into the White House, you still have to, keep up appearances. Number two, if the press joins you out on the golf course, you gotta hit them straight.
Now what's his drive?
For three, if you're gonna launch a three, you better not miss. That's what I do. Obama should give some lessons to his old pal Kamala. You remember he called her the best looking attorney general in the country? Well, Michelle probably wouldn't like it if he helped her work on her form, but the VP was out at the basketball court this week at American University when she decided to jack up a few shots. Here's how that went.
Should have moved up a little closer. Somebody get her a chair or a ladder.
That's hard to
and
watch.
let her get a little closer.
But nevertheless, she persevered. She always does. She just needed the second gentleman to mansplain how to bank it in. Bend your knees and aim for the box, Kamala. Only being vice president were that simple.
Yeah.
But her press secretary,
It is.
they don't even
She
know who
listens-
she is. It's
he probably
probably
knows.
her third or fourth. Posted the video on Twitter with the caption, "Nothing but net." She edited out her misses and only kept the one she made. And by the way, she banked it in. So none of that makes sense, and it's a lie, which is the slogan for the Biden-Harris campaign. But hey, bright side here for Kamala, at least she didn't fall off a bike. The crew from Duck Family Treasures takes New York.
What makes you lock your doors at night?
Doors aren't going to help you where we're from. You just got gunshots coming straight through the windows, right through the wall,
What about people coming in?
Forget about looking for ducks. Jace and Jep Robertson are back on the hunt for buried treasure. So we went with them to Times Square to ask New Yorkers what they treasure. Watch.
Do you know who we are? Look at me, I know who you all are. Come on now.
I'm excited to know. How we doing?
How you doing? What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Deer, honestly. I mean, we eat that all the time, but
Sour yogurt from Afghanistan. Chicken heart.
Fried crickets,
Never tried frog legs.
Yeah, they taste like chicken.
Salmon chicken is good. Probably like a worm or something? Grass. So you ate it, not necessarily smoked it.
What makes you lock your doors at night?
Doors aren't going to help you where we're from. You just got gunshots coming straight through the windows, right through the wall,
The wall just got 10 feet taller.
afraid I'm gonna get kidnapped.
That's legit. My neighbor kind of dictates when I leave my house.
Please won't you be my neighbor?
I just want to make sure nobody come in when I'm about to my dog.
Oh boy.
What do you feel is the nation's biggest treasure?
The people and the pride that we have as Americans in America.
You know, getting to be interviewed by y'all right now today.
So hot.
Drake. Everyone loves Drake.
I know when I like Blake.
Fashion.
Freedom. I think freedom is the biggest treasure.
Freedom!
Gotta laugh about that.
What is the lame duck in government? I don't really like geese. They be attacking people for no reason. What can we do better?
Protect our children.
Nobody wants to work together anymore.
You ever considered running for office?
Not until today.
No.
Can't make the gas prices so high.
I promise you I'm doing everything possible.
What's your impression of Joe Biden? I don't know why he's always falling.
He needs to learn to stand up a little better, you know, walk around.
We could do better.
I think it really helps the economy.
Are you a Jody?
Well, that's all you want to blow that from?
Sure.
Oh, are they coming? The pigeons?
I'm Jeff,
I'm Jace.
and this is our treasure. Here now, Jeff and Jace Robertson, co-stars of Fox Nation's Duck Family Treasure. So how did you guys like it out in Times Square today?
Well, I was looking at that footage because during all that, someone picked my pocket.
No.
Yes, and took my sunshades.
They're $20 shades, not Ray-Bans, $20 shades.
My wife just got me those for Father's Day. What was that, 4 days ago? And so, yeah, that happened.
So, I mean, I'd say I was surprised, but I'm not in New York that you got pickpocketed. You know, it was probably Gutfeld. He was probably looking for beer money. What can I say? Country boys like you come to the big city, you just get bamboozled. You guys got to be, you know, on the lookout.
It was, my impression was there's work to do here.
There's a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do.
like
No
that.
one's doing it. So,
It was actually the closest I've been to being high. One of the guests was, I don't know what he was smoking, but wow.
oh, the guy with the dreads and no shirt?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
it.
He said he was eating the grass.
Yeah, but I was
And
like,
smoking.
what is that?
And smoking it. Yeah.
So,
It's all legal now. It's all decriminalized, you know.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't know that? Now you guys are going to stay longer.
I did not know that.
All right, so tell us a little bit about what you guys are looking for and what to expect on the new Fox Nation deal.
Well, you know, we did the duck show, and then we got into a hobby of treasure hunting. And the next thing you know, Jeff and I are out there with our good buddy Murray, who's kind of a history expert, and we're looking for lost treasure.
All right.
Yeah.
Have you found anything yet?
Oh, we found some cool stuff.
Yeah.
We found something not from this planet.
Not from this planet.
That's right.
That is true.
Okay. Well,
Meteorite.
that is what we call a tease, gentlemen.
That is a tease.
We'll be watching on Fox Nation. Try not to get pickpocketed on your way out of here.
I will.
All right.
I'm going front pocket from here on out.
That's the
Front
move.
pocket. He's
You learned
seen it.
something on your trip to New York. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Waters window. Here are the poll results that we showed you yesterday. Can you scrawl your initials with your child in wet cement sidewalks when you walk by? Yes! And the duck guys agree with me. We are in the majority. Scroll away. We're not actually endorsing it, but we are agreeing with it. If you get charged with a crime for defacing property, not my fault. Time for some text messages. Sue says, I am so sick and tired of all the entitlement and privileges Democrats like Paul Pelosi are applying to themselves while the rest
They
of us
all
normal,
get.
typical, and hardworking
It not only
Americans
comes from the
are
top, it goes
struggling.
all the way through.
We are too. And that's why we're getting that dash cam.
It's
Kevin
not a,
says, whatever happened to Mothers Against Drunk Driving? Well, they released that kind of mealy-mouthed statement. They didn't even name Paul Pelosi in it. Very, very weak statement. And as my mother would say to me, we're very disappointed.
It's like a
And
conspiracy.
Ed says,
except
can we
it's
call this
all
the
agreed on
Nappaquiddick
out
affair?
front?
I see what you did there. Very good. Richard says, great show. Keep going until the early morning raid at your house. I know I'm getting audited. I've already talked to my tax attorney about it. Pelosi's got me in her sights. And I think my books are good. I hope. Blake says, do you have bodyguards? What do I need bodyguards for? I got the duck guys here. Plus, it's the Pelosi's. It's not like I'm messing with the Clintons. Never want to do that. I know better than that. Smarter than I look. Thanks, guys. DVR of the show. Tucker's up next. And always remember, I'm Waters, and this is my world.